Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Yacach. This is your host, Pastor Chris. We've been talking about breaking generational patterns. You know, some things that happen to you, your grandfather, your father, your mother, all the family members go through certain peculiar issues. How do you break them? How do you become the line crosser of that particular thing that occurs frequently in your generation, in your family line? That's what we'll be talking about this and every Wednesday on Yacach for the next few weeks. So join me, Pastor Chris, on Yacach, and you'll be blessed. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Yacach. Come, let us reason together. We are on a series called Breaking Generational Patterns, and today I want us to look at childhood traumas, childhood relationships, and how they affect your how it shapes your relation, how your childhood shapes your relationship. Sometimes some people, don't realize that the way they behave as adults stems from how their childhood came up, and sometimes the way your parents dealt with you in your childhood also stems from how they were dealt with as children, as in their childhood stage. So it can repeat itself. For instance, if you have an absent father, absent mother, growing up, you can become very absent in your relationship, and it could stem from the fact that your parents didn't have a present parent when they were growing up. So it becomes a negative cycle that can move from one generation to the other to the other. Sometimes we behave in a certain way that we don't even understand in our relationship. We don't know why we behave the way we do. Sometimes we are too clingy, or sometimes we are too absent in a relationship, and that is because of how we were brought up. The traumas we suffered as children, it has a way of playing up on our relationship when we grow into adulthood. So, and let's understand that your childhood shapes your adult relationship, creating an unconscious blueprint for love, trust, conflict resolution, and those type of things. Sometimes you have trust issues, or you are incapable of loving someone because you don't even know what it means to be loved. You've never experienced it, so you don't know how to give it. And all those things happen maybe because your parent didn't receive any type of love, and so they didn't know how to show you love. And their parents also didn't show them love, so they didn't know how to give it to you. So all those things can play into the next generation, to the next generation. But you have to be the line breaker. You have to be the game changer, generation changer, pattern breaker, by understanding what the pattern is, understanding what happens to you and why you are incapable of loving a certain way, and develop love and show love to your child by breaking that generational curse from happening to your children and then to your children's children. So let's make sure that we develop the ability to build up healthy relationship, to influence our generation for the better, the subsequent generation for the better. Sometimes early experiences dictate how we feel, whether we feel secured, we feel anxious, or avoid relationship at all. There are some people who avoid relationships because they saw their parents leave. They saw maybe mother leave or father leave, and because of that, they are very hard. They find it difficult to trust anybody. They find it difficult to go into a relationship themselves. I was talking to a young man the other day, and I was asking him about relationship when he's intending to get married, and he was like, "There's a difficulty." And you know what the difficulty is there for? Because there was growing up, he saw a very messy relationship between the mother and the father, and because of that, he has trust issues, and he has some issues that makes him want to pull back and not go into a relationship easily. And you see, that person will go into a relationship, may be absent in terms of showing affection or anything, because they are guarding their hearts just in case the pattern repeats itself. And they don't realize that by doing that, they are also starting a new pattern that will bring that same thing back. Because then have children, and their children will be devoid of love, and then they'll also not be able to show love, or they also have trust issues, and then the cycle continues that way. So understand that your first blueprint for love, it stems from your relationship that you have. Most men end up marrying somebody who looks like their mom, or who behaves like their mom. Most guys will end up with a girl who has the same mannerism or same, pattern as the mom. And most girls will find somebody who is like their dad. It's something that happens. I don't know why, but it's studies show that it happens. Because your child, your relationship with the first carer, your first mother, your first father, it forms a blueprint that you operate on. If it was a loving relationship, then you are capable of giving love and receiving love. If it was not a loving, if it was abusive, then you find yourself becoming an abuser, or becoming somebody that leans towards abusive people. So like we said the other day, make sure that you are able to put a label on it. Once you can see the label, you can see that this thing is happening, this is trying to repeat itself, then you know what it is and how to resolve it. Most of the time when there's a positive relationship, it fosters security, while poor, absent, abusive relationship can lead to daddy issues, manifesting in fear of abandonment. Some ladies become very clingy, always, being clingy, going through their partner's phone, going through checking to see whether somebody, becoming insecure, and all those type of negative things that some people exhibit is because they had childhood traumas, they had baby issues that they haven't dealt with. Maybe they were abandoned or they were abused by daddy. Those daddy issues always have a way of coming back in a relationship. So make sure that you can see. If you see it, then you know that there's something. An absent, inconsistent father can cause insecurity, leading to intense clinginess, fear of rejection, extreme emotional distance to avoid being hurt. There are some ladies who are very distant in a relationship because, and if you ask them why, they can't even they can't articulate why they behave that way, and it's because their father left. I know of a lady who, in a marriage really was very distant in terms of love and everything. And when conversations went through, realized that the father left early. And because the father left early, the child had developed, the lady developed as a child, developed her coping mechanism of not thinking of wanting a father, wanting love from a father. And so they get married and they don't want love from the partner, because when they receive a certain type of love, the person is likely to leave, likely to go like the father did. So they don't want it, so that the person doesn't leave. So they want you around, but they don't want love from you, or they don't want to show you love, because they feel in their subconscious that if they show love or receive love from you, you may leave. So those daddy issues have a way of coming back. Sometimes trust and intimacy issues, a lack of trust in a masculine, stemming from unreliable father. The father was never there, will promise and never deliver. I'll come and see you, I'll buy you something, never buys. The father was always absent, and vice versa. I'm using father, daughter, but it can be a mother, son as well. There are some women who are like always, doing business and never at home to show the son love. So they have trust issues. When you're away, they want to check where you are. Every 5 minutes, they want you to call back to tell them where you are, what you're doing, who you are with, and where you are going. So you can even feel stifled in the relationship. And it's not because you have done anything wrong, but it's because the person has, trust issues, intimacy issues. Sometimes women may unconsciously choose a partner that resembles the father. If the father was abusive, they tend to lean on people who are abusive, because when they get abused, or when the abuse begins to happen, they feel the normalcy, because that was their childhood normal. The childhood normalcy was the father being abusive. So when they have a boyfriend or girlfriend who is abusive, they feel it's normal. So when they have somebody who is loving and somebody who is, always present, they don't want that relationship. I know of some people that, when it's like, why do you love me so much? Why do you care so much? Why are you always, trying to help me? Why? And isn't that what you expect from a husband? Isn't that what you expect from your partner? No, they don't expect that, because their parents never showed them that. And so they expect to be abused, they expect to be neglected, they expect you to mistreat them. And when you mistreat them, they feel it's normal, So all those issues are something that you can trace to the past and become a pattern. Sometimes there are some people that always seeking validation. Every time, am I looking beautiful? Is my hair okay? Is my nails okay? Because they never ever had anybody call them beautiful. They never had anybody call them nice or anybody showing them a compliment. So that lack of affection caused them to always constantly demand reassurance from you, or demand, that their partner, become, validate them all the time. When the day you stop, you forget to buy a flower, or you forget to buy a chocolate, they say, you don't love me anymore because you didn't buy me a chocolate. Because they lack validation, they lack compliments, and they want you to validate and compliment them every time. And that can be exhausting in any relationship. Sometimes there are some who don't have any expectation, because growing up, they were disappointed all the time. So it makes them become people who have poor relationship skills. They don't expect anything. They have low standards in their relationship. They accept poor treatment. They have very weak personal boundaries. Those people who have been abused in the past, they tend to have very low expectation from anybody, and low boundary. You have a girlfriend, well, you are committing adultery, you are cheating in a relationship. It's like she feels it's normal. They don't have any boundaries whatsoever. All these things can happen, but I've described the symptoms. I want to talk about how to recover from these childhood traumas, how to recover from these symptoms, so that moving on, you can do better in your relationships, to show a better pattern to your children who repeat it in their own relationship, so that you break the cycle. The first thing, like we said the last time, make sure you acknowledge that you have these issues. One of the things that a lot of people don't do is to admit the problem that they have. All these type of things we've talked about: low expectations, seeking validation, trust, intimate issues, and all those things. Most people, when you ask them, you confront them with these things, they will deny it. They will say, I'm not like that. No, that's not me. So you're likely to not to be able to deal with it. So name the problem, name it, and call it by its name. Psalm 66 verse 8 says, if I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. And Proverbs 28:13 says that he who covers his sin will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will have mercy. So name the issue. I have trust issues. I have validation issues. I have daddy issues. I have abandonment issues. Call it by its name. When I was growing up, this is what happened to me. I had this, I was abused as a child. So this is what I have been dealing with. Once you can name it, you can deal with it. So make sure that you name it. The second thing is that process your emotions and your memories. Name it and then process it against the way your emotions ran. I am incapable of loving because I was abandoned, I was neglected. Be able to put that line across. This happened to me, that is why I behave this way. I do this because of what happened. Once you can put that line, you can draw that symmetry and find that shape, you can deal with it. So make sure that you are able to process your feelings, what you are going through, what you go through now, as against what happened to you in the past. Allow yourself to experience emotions like sadness, anger, resentment, rather than suppressing them. Talk about it. That's how, when you talk about it, it will bring out the feeling that the child in you had to deal with. It will bring it up again. But when you bring it up, then you can deal with it. Third thing is that reparent your inner child. What do I mean by reparent your inner child? Reparent your inner child in the sense that now begin to behave as if you are the father that neglected you as a child, and talk to that child inside of you that this thing happened, but it was not right. And learn to love yourself. Learn to talk to the inner child in you. Acknowledge the needs of your younger self. And maybe your father never played with you. Your father never showed affection. Your father was never there. Never, I grew up with a father that I never once saw laugh or smile. My father never played with me like a child playing football with the father. I can never say that I played football with my father or played horse or whatever you call with my dad. I never. My father, in my eyes, growing up as a child, was the one that beats you because you've done something wrong. That's my memory of my father. But if I were to repeat that cycle to where my children, I don't think I'll have a good relationship with my children today. But growing up, in a relationship, I realized early that what I grew up with, the father I grew, first of all, he was never there. Secondly, when he came, when there's any relationship, it was almost non-existent. He's a question and answer series. He asks a question, you give an answer, and that was the relationship I had with my dad. But I had to reverse that pattern by acknowledging it, that this was wrong. This is not the way to treat a child. This is not how to parent. Maybe his parent was absent, and so he didn't know any better, and so he did not do the right thing with me. But as a father growing up with my young children, I identified that the way my father brought me up was not the right way. So now I need to do better with my children so that pattern is broken. Thankfully, by the grace of God, I have broken that pattern. My relationship with my children are great as far as I'm concerned. They are great. I grew up, played with them, played a house with my daughter, doing pancakes, imaginary pancakes, and setting up a breakfast table to eat from there. I did all that, till today. I'm still, all the girly things we have to talk about, we talk about it up to today. So reconnect with your inner childhood and cultivate self-compassion by reparenting yourself. Feel sorry for your inner self. And talk to your inner self. Tell your inner self the way you were treated was not right. And learn to be nice to your inner childhood self. And tell your childhood self things are going to get better. And make sure that you relate well with that inner child in you. And build a safe connection, Learn to set healthy boundaries, in a relationship. Learn to talk to yourself, talk to your partner, and reconnect and say, listen, I know I've been emotionally absent. I know I haven't been the best partner. I've done this or done that. And see, it stems from my childhood. So from today, I'm going to do better. Can you help me? Can you talk to me when you feel that I'm emotionally absent? Can you talk to me where I'm going off with the children? For instance, if I'm not behaving like the way I need to behave as a dad or as a mother, can you prompt me? Because I know these are the issues I've had in my past and I need to resolve them. So build safe connections, and find support from your partner, find support from your siblings, find support from the people that are close to you. Let them tell you serve as a safeguard for you, so that they can tell you when you're going wrong, when you need to resolve things. And then if all else fails, seek professional help if you need it. Go to therapy. There's nothing wrong with going to therapy as a Christian, as an adult, if you have childhood baby issues and all that, and you feel that you still need professional help, professional support. It's a trauma that you have gone through. is you didn't ask yourself, you didn't ask to be put through that thing, but it happened to you. Life happens, things happen. And so if it's happened to you and you think you need, because you can't deal with it yourself and you can't do all these things that we have talked about by yourself, and you need professional help, don't be afraid, don't be shy, do it. Even if you need the support of your partner, you need a husband or wife to go with you through that support, so be it. Make sure you get support, so that the pattern is broken. Don't repeat that cycle where your children are concerned. Make sure that you do the opposite of what was done to you. Make sure that you don't have, those insecurities are passed from you to your children, so that negative cycle repeats itself. You are the line crosser. You are the change maker. You are the one that will break that pattern in that family. So make sure you do that. Until I come your way next week, this has been your host, Pastor Chris. I'll see you again. Shalom, peace, God bless.